Here are my thoughts about Espeon in Pokémon Unite. First, let's talk about Espeon's ability, Magic Bounce. Magic Bounce negates hindrances, and Espeon then becomes immune to them for a short time. At the same time, this ability deals damage to the enemy that attempted to inflict the hindrance, and then it applies a slow for about a second or less. This is really useful, and I think this actually also works if you're walking into the enemy's slow field thing. Now, for Espeon's attacks and Espeon's boosted attack, it's really interesting. It's not you have to attack a certain number of times and then get a boosted attack. It's a little timer, and once that charge fills up underneath your health bar, then you have your boosted attack, which is way different than any other Pokemon right now. Okay, let's talk about its ability upgrades, and we'll start with Psi Shock. So Psi Shock. It's kind of hard to say really fast. Psi Shock has a number of projectiles, and if you hit all of them, it actually causes stun. It starts with a 5-second cooldown, and Psi Shock goes really well with Future Sight. With Future Sight, Espeon will lock onto an enemy, and it will deal damage after a short time. But while the Future Sight is active, moves that you try to attack with auto lock onto the Pokemon that the Future Sight is attached to. Now, Future Sight has a 9-second cooldown, but that cooldown gets reduced by Psi Shock if you hit all 5 of the psychic bead things that you shoot. This is a really great moveset for doing quick damage and all-at-once damage. It's also my preferred moveset right now, because with Psi Shock, if you hit all 5 projectiles, you actually stun the enemy for just under a second, and that gives you time to space out or attack them again, and makes a huge difference in, I think, Espeon's total viability. Now, let's talk about its other moveset, Stored Power. Stored Power unleashes blasts of psychic power at random enemies in the area of effect. I think that's pretty straightforward. Basically, in your attack range, if you use Stored Power, you have up to 5 little beam bullet things, psychic bullet things, that just auto-seek enemies. It does a lot of damage if you have one enemy, but if you're in a group, it'll target a bunch of them in a group. Now, this can be really useful if you're focusing on getting rid of ads, like if you have the bees up and you want to attack all of them at once, you can use Stored Power to do that. The issue with Stored Power that I was having was when you're in a fight or in a team fight, it's really hard to target specific Pokemon using Stored Power. While I was playing, I would use Stored Power. There'd be someone who just had a sliver of health left, but I wouldn't be able to kill them because Stored Power would end up targeting some other Pokemon in my range, and I just didn't really like that. But it can be really useful still. It only has a 5-second cooldown, it's a sure hit, and it's still useful for groups if you want to play that way. Then we have Psi Beam, and honestly Psi Beam could work with just about anything. If you go Psi Beam Stored Power or Psi Beam with Psi Shock, I think it works really well. Psi Beam, you fire a ray at a Pokemon, and if you hit a Pokemon, it'll bounce off and hit other Pokemon, dealing a little less damage. This is also really great for groups, which is why Psi Beam and Stored Power pair well together, because it's just a lot of kind of, I guess, crowd control where you're hitting pretty much everyone in your area of attack because you have 5 projectiles hitting them. Your Psi Beam will hit one and then split off and hit the rest. And this would be really useful for large groups and team fights. If you're on one-on-ones, they do a lot of damage. And I actually found a lot of success using Psi Beam and Psi Shock because you can use Psi Beam, you can use Psi Shock to stun, hit them a few times, maybe get another Psi Beam off or Psi Shock off. And it's just lots of really instant damage. Now let's talk about the Unite move, Psychic Solaire. Basically, Espeon throws enemies in the area of effect up into the air, it stuns them while they're suspended, and then there's like an explosion or something, they smash to the ground, and it deals a bunch of damage. This is an awesome Unite move. The only issue that you want to make sure you're aware of is that when you use it, you cannot move while it's active. So you need to make sure that you're in the middle of a large group and then use it, and that is at its most effective. I've been able to get some amazing plays with this. I had one play where right when Zapdos spawned, the whole opposing team was grouped up, so I jumped in the middle, popped my Unite move, had some teammates use their Unite move, so they were stunned. They couldn't do anything to us, and they just died. We got the Zapdos, and it was a huge win for my team. So it's got some really great usability. It takes 112 seconds to recharge, and if you're farming like you should be, getting experience, you can probably get this Unite move up in about every minute or so. Just use it when you got it and make sure you time it well. So that is Espeon's moveset and my thoughts on what are good movesets. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, farewell.